You have decided to join us today for our Sunday morning celebration service right here at Unity of Citrus County. We invite you to get settled in. Our service is about to begin in just a few moments. It is our sincere prayer that the music, the meditation, and the message will uplift you and inspire you to become the light of the world that you have come here to be. We invite you to come and visit us in person. We would love to meet you. And we invite you to also visit our website at www.unityofcitrus.org. Have a blessed day.
Because as we get to know them, as we get to understand how to use them properly in our lives, it will help us to be able to grow and unfold our divine nature. And so it's important to understand these divine powers. I know someone here in the congregation tells me she swims to the meditation of the divine powers. Miss Barbara, I hear you back there swimming. And sometimes even in the shower, I'm saying the 12 powers because I want to remind myself that I am divine in nature and that I have the capacity to show that forth as I use these powers rightly. So today, we're going to talk about the power of imagination. I couldn't help but think about this song when I was writing this talk. So you're going to sing it with me if you know. It's probably The Temptations. It was just my imagination running away with me. It was just my imagination running away with me. Remember that song? Oh, yeah, really nice. Thank you. Good job to you guys, too. You did a good job there. But my question to you is, how many times have you felt like your imagination was running away with you? How many times? Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I see Sharon back there. I see you, yes. And boy, oh boy, where our imagination will take us, right? Unbelievable. Dr. Seuss, yes, it was Dr. Seuss. He wrote all the places on my imagination will go. And I can relate to that. So we're going to look at the wisdom of Garfield the cat. He says, I lived through some terrible things in my life, and most of them never actually happened. Isn't that true? They never happened. And yet we keep reliving these scenarios in our mind. We're such experts at using our imagination to create stuff. That's probably not true. Thank you, Garfield. There's a story about this man, written by this man called Dave Perry. He's a humorist, he's an author, he's a Pulitzer Prize winner, and that shows how we can really use our imagination to fabricate things that are not there. So the story is about this guy named Roger and this woman named Elaine. And Roger really likes Elaine. So he asks her out to the movies, and she says yes, and they have a really good time. And he waits a couple of nights later, and he asks her again, and to dinner this time. And they really, really enjoy each other's company. And they really don't want to be with anyone else. They just want to be with each other because it was such a, nice connection there. And one evening, while they were driving home from an event that they had gone to, Elaine had this thought in her mind. And it never occurred to her to really think it through. She just blurted it out loud. And she says, Roger, do you realize that as of tonight, we've been seeing each other for 6 months? Silence. Nothing. Now Elaine starts to think, I wonder if it bothered him that I said that. I've been feeling like maybe he feels confined to this relationship. Maybe I'm trying to push him too hard. Maybe he doesn't really want this. Meanwhile, Roger is thinking, gosh, 6 months? And Elaine is thinking, I'm not sure if he wants this kind of relationship. Sometimes I think that he needs a little bit of space, and I need a little bit of space too. And maybe we should break this up already. And where's he going with this anyway? Are we going to get married? Is he going to talk about marriage? Or how many kids? How many kids does he want us to have? And what are my kids going to look like? And Roger is thinking, This means that we started going out in February. That was right after I took the car to the dealership. Oh my God, I need an oil change. Elaine notices that he's upset, and she starts to say, oh, I can see it in his face. I shouldn't have said those words. He's totally upset. I shouldn't have said anything. I should have just kept it, let him say something to me. Maybe I'm reading this relationship all wrong. And Roger is thinking, I'm going to have to go back and look at the transmission warranty because it's going to expire soon. And the story goes on. There's only silence. They're living in their imagination. And they're just kind of not connecting. And when they finally arrive to Elaine's house, Elaine just jumps out of the car crying. She doesn't say anything. She just leaves. She's in tears. And Roger is thinking, what did I do? What did I do? This stuff really happens, doesn't it? It really does happen. We let our imagination run away with us. In Unity, we teach one of the principles is that our thinking creates the experience of our reality. And our thinking sort of kind of ignites our imagination. You know, get a thought, and all of a sudden, the imagination kind of moves with it. We got to be careful because the imagination is very, very powerful. If you use it rightly, it's very powerful. So it says that your imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire, you will what you imagine, and at last, you create what you will. The imagination is part of the creative process. It's where that creation begins. It begins in your mind. And we say the color is blue because blue is so beautiful, right? You ever sat outside, looked at the blue sky, and you let the clouds forming, and your imagination kind of goes wild there too. So it's a nice soothing color. Imagination. And where do you find that in your body? Because Charles Fillmore would always say we can locate our body on our body where these powers reside. And this one is right here between your eyes. It's called the third eye. The third eye. Sometimes the third eye helps us to see, is the inner eye. Helps us to see what we don't see with our physical eyes. Charles Fillmore said that this third eye here, he says, this is the point of expression for a set of tissues that extend back into the brain and connect with an image or a picture-making function near the root of the optic nerve. So we can make pictures, give it color, give it form. That's what the imagination does. And the disciple is Bartholomew. And Bartholomew is right thinking. It's positive thinking. Right thinking, positive thinking. That's what he represents. But there's a story in the scripture about him where he had to check his own thinking. It turns out that Bartholomew was invited by another disciple, Philip. And Philip says to him, you got to come with me. You got to meet Jesus. He is a great teacher, a master teacher. And he heals people. This man from Nazareth, he does all this. And Bartholomew says, can anything good ever come from Nazareth? A judgment. Didn't I even met him? Have you ever judged someone and you really don't know them, but you judge them anyway? You don't like the way they look or the smell or the way they talk or just something, you start judging them. But you don't know them. And in your imagination, you just try to create all kinds of stories, piece it together so they could justify the judgment, the prejudice, whatever it is. And when we do that, it stops us from seeing rightly. It stops us from seeing from that inner eye. But anyway, Bartholomew, who represents positive thinking, decides, you know what, I don't want to have that thought in my head. I think I'll go and meet him anyway. So he goes with Philip to meet Jesus. And they talk for a little bit. And at one point, Jesus says to Bartholomew, earlier today, I saw you praying beneath the fig tree. Well, Bartholomew was stunned. He said, how could that be? We're miles apart. There's no way he could have seen me. And Bartholomew turns and says, this man has a kind of vision that is greater than our physical eyes. This man has the kind of vision that I want. And Jesus says to him, you're going to see greater things. Because see, Jesus understood that the same power that was in him was in Bartholomew and everyone else. And if Jesus were able to see through the eyes of the imagination greater things, so could Bartholomew. Sometimes we can't see the greater things, right? We just can't. We find ourselves sometimes thinking, can anything good come out of this? Can anything good? Maybe right now, perhaps you're encountering something that you feel, can anything good come out of this? You know, even when I look at the world, the way that it is right now, in so much turmoil, hatred, division, cruelty, separation, it's just the world is in turmoil. And we can easily ask ourselves, can anything come out of this confusion and this fear that is tearing us apart? Because we have allowed our imagination running away with you and me. This imagination has created all kinds of scenarios from the feed that they've been listening to and hearing and not knowing if it's true. But yet we take it in and we take it in and we let our imagination imprison us sometimes in fear. That is not the right use of imagination. Because when you use it that way, whether you use it for the right way or not, you are still putting into motion the creative process. And so what we see out there, what we're seeing out there, is mirroring what we have already created. It's out there. Can anything good ever come out of this mess that we have gotten ourselves into? Oh my. How many believe that yes, it can? Yes, absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Say it with me. Absolutely yes. Something good will come out of this. And you know who is it up to? Us, the people in the world, us. We are creating the experience of our reality. We are doing it. And we have the power, we must never forget this, we have the power to co-create with God something different. We have that. Something different. Because everything that has existed, this chair, that piano, the rug, everything that you see here, has been created twice. First, in the mind, with your imagination, and then into form. Then into form. How many of you have ever had an idea and you say, wow, this is a really great idea, and you start to visualize what that looks like? Maybe even put a vision board. How many of you have done vision boards? Yeah, do it all the time. So you have a vision board and you see it and you want to hold that in your consciousness. You want to be able to see it. And then with the powers of the will and the power of faith and the power of power and all these powers, we pull these together to bring out that which is in our imagination. We can create it. Fillmore says that it is through the imagination that the formless, it's here, takes form. It starts to take form. You begin to shape it. You see the images of what you want to see in your life. We could do it for our lives. We could do it for the world. Just as the artist can see every picture in their mind, you can see it here. And then they put it into their canvas. That's how the imagination works. You see it here first. That's where the creation first starts, in the formless, and then out into the realm of form. So we can begin to see our world the way that we want to see it. We can begin to release those thoughts and anything in there, judgments, whatever they are, that do not conform with what you want to create. And we all have them. We all have them. Those things in our lives that are keeping us from creating what we want to see in our lives and in our world. See, when God created the idea of man, it was an idea. It was an idea. God ideates. He brings the idea in the realm of the absolute. And then, from there, it takes form. So, man, we that have been created in the image and the likeness of God, we follow that same pattern of creation. Co-creators with God. How amazing is that? Amazing. So we want to engage our imagination in the things that we want, not the things that we don't want. So remember Elaine and Roger? Elaine and Roger. So I wonder if Elaine, when she encountered the silence, because, sometimes we're so uncomfortable with silence, aren't we? We have to blabber away. But what if she had just taken a moment and stepped back as the witness of her thoughts and just say, well, that's interesting. That's interesting. And keep stepping back. That's interesting. Look at it with curiosity. Why is my mind going in that direction? It doesn't validate what I want to create. So, what if she did this with no judgment or attachment, just observing with curiosity, but also with an open heart? When your heart is open, your sacred heart of love, all that is love. There is no fear. She was in fear. But had she stayed open, no judgment, no nothing, and just observing, wow, that's pretty interesting. My mind can get away with itself, and just observe and just observe. I think that it would have been a little bit different. Don't you think? Yeah, don't you think? It takes practice. These things takes practice. I think the torment in her mind would have not happened had she just stopped it immediately and say, wow, that's interesting. Keep my heart open. Let this space be a space of love between us, because then it becomes a safe space for Roger to come and say what's on his mind. It probably wouldn't have been about his oil change. So let your heart stay open. And the second thing that when we're working with the imagination is to look twice. When you went to driving school, they always tell you, look twice. Make sure. Why do they do that? Why do they do that? Why do they tell you look twice? Yes, so you won't get an accident. You may have missed something the first time, right? So there's a story in the Bible about a blind man in Bathsheba, and it says that the blind man was brought to Jesus to be healed of his blindness. And Jesus took the blind man by the hand, led him, the Spirit leads us, leads him out of the village. And he puts saliva on his hands, and then he puts it on the man's eyes. And he asks him the first time, can you see anything? And the man looks up and he looks and he looks. He says, I see people, but they look like trees walking. And Jesus put his hands on the eyes again and he said, look again. Look again. And at that moment, everything became so much clearer. He took a second look. Sometimes the first time we look at anything, we're not able to look at it clearly because we're looking at it with these eyes and interpreting it with our senses and whatever it is that we have in conscious. So we're not really seeing it clearly. So this practice reminds us, look again. Look again. Yes, look at what you see in front of you, look at whatever the facts are, but then look again through the lens of spirit. Look again as the spiritual truth that never changes, ever. That situation will change, but the truth will not change. So you look at it through the spiritual truth. What is the something greater here? What is the something greater that's happening in our world? I thought about that. I said, perhaps all of this has to happen so that our hearts will break wide open, so that we can realize what we're doing, so we can become awake again, because we can fall asleep. Definitely. Look through the eyes of spirit, the spiritual lenses, and remember that God is the one power and one presence in the universe and in our lives that is all powerful. And guess what? There's no other power equal to that. None. None. And you are one with God. You are one with God. I am one with God no matter where I am, no matter what's happening. I am one with God. And I am not designed to be defeated. And neither were you. You have everything within you to fulfill those dreams that you have, those things that you have in your image, to be able to help become part of the collective to create something new in our world. So look twice. When fear starts to bubble up, when you start to getting worried, and you know, my mother, my poor mom, towards the end of life, she was so worried because she get the TV on 24/7. And so she became afraid of leaving the house. She just became afraid. And that was so sad to see that, because she was such an active woman. She was never meant for her to live in that fear. So look twice. Engage your imagination in creating what you want. Cora Fillmore called the power of the imagination a chisel of the mind. Chisel of the mind. Remember Michelangelo? He chiseled away anything that was not the masterpiece that he was seeing in his mind, what he wanted to create. And we do that with our imagination. So we're remembering that we want to shape, the imagination shapes some forms, whatever it is that you were thinking. So be careful what you're thinking. Oh, be careful, little mind. I don't think that's a line, but be careful. Feelings of inadequacy and anxiety, or thoughts that I can't do it, it will never happen to me, I'm not right for it, will weaken what you are trying to manifest. So if there was ever a time, ever a time in our history for us to use this power of imagination, the time is now. The time is now. The time is now. Not tomorrow, not later, this very minute, while you sit in your seats. The time is now. I'm going to invite you for just a few seconds to close your eyes, if that's comfortable for you. Just gently close your eyes. And in the silence of this moment, bring your awareness to your heart center. If you want to touch it, go ahead, whatever. Just bring it there and breathe. And feel the impulse of spirit wanting to express itself more. Feel that. It is beating your heart, it is breathing you. Divine life is flowing through you, energizing you. God is where you are and desires to express more of itself through you. Feel that. And then move your awareness to the area of your third eye between your eyes. Move there. And begin to see in your imagination that's something greater that you want for your life. What is that? What does it feel like? What does it look like? Something greater that I want for my life. It looks like this. It feels like this. As if it's already happened. Imagine it. Now take a deep breath and come back to the room. Were you able to see images of what you wanted in your life? Were you able to feel it? Our imagination is powerful. And if you can feel that for what you want in your life, you can imagine what you want for the world as well. Take the time to sit in quiet space and imagine the life that you want for yourself, for your family, for your community, for your church, for the world. What is it that you want to participate in creating with your imagination to begin that process that would eventually manifest in this world? I know for me, I want to create peace in my life and peace in the world. I want to see myself in joy and great health, abundantly blessed in every area of my life. I want to see myself walking joyously, knowing the truth that I am divine. That's what I want. When we don't do that, when we go into fear, it pushes us into complacency. You don't want to do anything. You're so trapped in fear. You don't even want to begin to imagine anything good for yourself or the world. Because you've now convinced yourself that you're not good enough or whatever it is that you're thinking of. So chisel those things out. Be the artist of your life. Begin in your imagination. There's nothing childish about using your imagination. Nothing at all. Sometimes when you use your imagination, you get the greatest joy. In the audience is a great friend of mine that we practically grew up together. And poor Joe, whenever we felt like getting together, the three of us, there were three of us, we would pick up a spatula or a broom or whatever it was, and Joe was the audience, and we would sing to him. We put on a great old performance, boy, which we created from our imagination. Imagination taps into the realm of divine mind, the storehouse of infinite possibilities and limitless potential. It's what forms and shapes so that the manifestation that we want will come. The source of all creation lies within you, my friends. And you have access to it through your imagination. Isn't that cool? You have access to it through your imagination. So how about if we start creating something we really want for our lives and for this world? You've come, and this time is not an accident that you are living on this planet at this time, because it's up to us to begin to create what we want and not allow our thoughts to go running away with us, our imagination running away with us. Take reign of it. Take reign of it. You have the power and the dominion over your thoughts and your feelings. Take reign of those. And let love guide you into creating the life that you deserve. Emerson said that if you can conceive it and believe it, you can achieve it. You say amen to that? Amen. Well, I believe that myself. I believe we can do something extraordinary here at Unity of Citrus, beyond anything that we can imagine. But we're going to believe it. And we're going to believe it for our own lives, that we're going to live extraordinary lives. And we're going to believe it for our world. Are you with me? Yes. Namaste.